I'm sorry, the wedding is cancelled. Lena Miller stood in her pristine white wedding dress under the spotlights, feeling like a complete joke. Before she could even process those words, she was roughly pushed aside from the red carpet. Her fiancé, Charles Guthrie, stood on the steps in his immaculate suit, showing no remorse. His expression was cold as he spoke. Lena, we're never really right for each other. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Lena's nails dug deep into her palms, but she couldn't feel the pain. Her eyes fixed on the woman holding his arm, Molly Linden. Her best friend, her most trusted confidant, even her chosen bridesmaid. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Molly? What are you doing? Her voice trembled. Molly's eyes flashed with triumph as she leaned against Charles with a coy smile. Lena, you know I've always fancied Charles. I just never said anything before. Indeed, Charles said coldly. Molly is the woman I truly want to marry. The hall fell silent before erupting into hushed conversations. The guests' stares felt like daggers piercing her skin. Betrayed by her fiancé and best friend? How the mighty have fallen. The Miller heiress reduced to this. I heard her father's company is in trouble. The Miller Group is nearly bankrupt. The Guthries must be jumping ship. The voices grew louder, but Lena felt frozen, as if plunged into an icy lake. She'd always led a charmed life as the daughter of Miller Group's chairman, groomed to be the future business heir. She'd never tasted betrayal until now. At this moment, she realized the deadliest wounds come from those closest to you. Security, please escort Miss Miller out. The host looked uncomfortable but complied. 2 security guards approached and grabbed her arms without warning. Let go of me! She struggled as they roughly pushed her out of the hotel lobby. Her heel caught on the carpet's edge, sending her sprawling onto the stone steps outside. The pristine wedding dress was now covered in dirt, the skirt torn, the veil askew. The wind whipped around her, making her look like a discarded beggar. The bitter wind cut through her, but everyone turned a blind eye. Only the rapid clicks of photographers' cameras could be heard in the distance. At that moment, Lena bit through her lip, blood welling up. But the pain in her heart was far worse. She watched the treacherous couple holding hands on the red carpet, accepting congratulations and applause, while her eyes filled with ice-cold hatred. Slowly sitting up, her hand pressed against the ground as she whispered, Charles Guthrie, Molly Linden, I won't forget this. From this day forward, I'll make you lose everything until you're crushed underfoot, just like me today. 5 years later, New York, Financial District. Ms. Miller, the chairman of L. Foundation, is here personally to discuss cooperation. He insists on meeting you face to face. Lena stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, her slender figure striking in a perfectly tailored black suit that emphasized her fierce beauty. She turned slowly, her features no longer those of the helpless lamb she once was, but of a predator armed with sharp blades. She smiled slightly, let him wait. Tell him, I want the whole world to know that Lena Miller is back. Early spring in City S. The first company to occupy the top floor of the newly completed Commerce Tower in the city center caused a storm in the business circle. VONN Holdings, the world's top venture capital firm, officially established its presence in City S. Word is that VONN has brought billions in funding back to the UK, planning to acquire Genewell plc, one of the country's 3 leading enterprises. They say Vaughn's new executive president is a woman. In the office, Secretary Sadie Stewart was organizing files, while nervously glancing at the woman behind the desk. The woman wore an exquisitely tailored champagne gold suit, with a knee-length skirt that brushed against her chair. In her stilettos, she exuded a cool, distant aura, her features sharp with intelligence and determination. Lena finished reading the last page and looked up. Has the Miller Group board agreed to sell their shares? Yes, the secretary nodded. They're desperate for a bailout and willing to transfer controlling rights at a 30% premium. Excellent, she said coolly. Notify the legal team to prepare for signing. Also, I'd like to visit the old place myself. The secretary paused, then understanding dawned, a flash of surprise crossing her face. Understood, I'll arrange it right away. 3 hours later, at Genewell plc headquarters. The atmosphere in the boardroom was tense. Charles sat at the head of the table, his expression extremely dark. Their conditions are too aggressive. They're not here to cooperate, they're here to devour us. He stood up, slamming the table. How dare this mysterious female CEO who's never shown her face in our circles be so arrogant? Charles. Molly, sitting beside him, spoke softly. What's her name? The secretary checked the documents and carefully replied, Lena Miller. The air instantly froze. Molly started violently, her face turning deathly pale. Charles also seemed struck by a hammer blow, his voice catching. Say that again? Lena Miller, the secretary repeated. The two exchanged glances, both filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Wasn't she supposed to be abroad laying low? How could she? At that moment, the boardroom door opened. A pair of long legs stepped in, the hard click of stilettos echoing with each step. Each sound striking like a hammer to their hearts. Ms. Miller has arrived. The secretary conducting the meeting stood up in greeting. And everyone turned to look. The woman walked in slowly, her suit cut with clean lines. Her hair elegantly pinned up, her lips cool, wrapped in an aura of nobility and sharp edges. Like a queen stepping out of the spotlight. Charles suddenly stood up, his pupils contracting. Lena, you. Who let you in? Lena smiled slightly, her red lips parting. I'm your new boss. Nice to meet you. The boardroom fell silent. From today, Genewell plc belongs to VONN, she advanced step by step. And I am Vaughn's executive president, Lena Miller. Weren't you bankrupt? Charles shouted, losing control. Her gaze remained steady. You thought Lena Miller could only rely on the Miller family? 5 years ago, I lost everything, but I also let go of everything. I built it all back up with my own hands. Now it's your turn, to watch me rise to the top from your knees. Charles opened his mouth but no sound came out. Molly's hands gripped the table edge so hard her nails nearly dug into the wood. She had never imagined that the bride, who had been abandoned at the hotel entrance, would return like this. Stepping over their pride and fortune, riding the waves back. Lena turned, her voice cold and decisive. Notify HR that starting tomorrow, Genewell's senior management will undergo a complete restructuring. If you're not satisfied, she paused, you can resign voluntarily. The boardroom remained silent. She swept her gaze over everyone's mixed expressions of shock and awe. Her lips curling slightly. The sweetest revenge in this world isn't making you cry and wail. It's making you continue working for me with a smile on your faces. With that, she strode out, leaving only the sharp clicks of her heels against the floor. Crisp and decisive, like a victor's trumpet. Back in her car, Lena dropped her cold demeanor and leaned back in her seat, closing her eyes. Her assistant's voice came through. Ms. Miller, today's acquisition was very successful. But the media has gotten wind of it. Would you like to respond? She opened her eyes, her tone calm, no need. Let them guess. I'll make sure that in every glass reflection in this city, they'll see the face of Lena Miller. Day 2 of the Genewell plc executive meeting. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew today was the new boss's first official day. From security guards to receptionists, from finance to PR. Everyone was secretly speculating about who the sudden Iron Lady might be. I heard she's quite young, but even the chairman stands when she speaks. Wasn't she the Miller heiress? Don't be daft, the Millers went under years ago. How could she rise to power overnight? The whispers continued until that familiar yet strange figure appeared. Lena walked in wearing a white shirt and a bespoke dark gray pencil skirt with patent leather heels. Her hair pulled back in a sleek updo. Her expression was cool and crisp as she stepped into the executive lift. The receptionist's hand trembled, nearly spilling her coffee. That was Lena Miller. The one who was jilted at her wedding 5 years ago? Wasn't she supposed to be struggling in New York? How did she become our CEO? At 10 a.m., the regular executive meeting began. The boardroom was filled with almost all key executives. Charles sat at the far end, his face ashen. Beside him, Molly wrung her hands nervously. Having just learned of her transfer from PR director to reception manager. Her expression equally grim. How dare she reorganize staff before even arriving? Who does she think she is? Don't worry, Molly. I won't let her get too comfortable, Charles muttered. Just then, the boardroom doors opened. Footsteps echoed like drumbeats against hearts. Lena walked in with composed dignity, taking her seat at the head of the tiered table. No one dared move. Until she tapped the table lightly, "Please, be seated." Everyone snapped out of their daze and hurriedly sat down. She remained silent, scanning each face. Her sharp gaze passing over Charles and Molly, who instinctively avoided her eyes. Her lips curved slightly as she spoke. First order of business. I'd like to review Jinwoo's performance data for the past 3 years. The former CEO, Mr. Guthrie, will present. The room tensed. Charles's face changed. You want me to? Lena smiled coldly. As the former CEO, surely you're best placed to summarize the past. Unless you're not familiar with the company's 3-year accounts? That single question pinned him to the spot. Charles's face reddened as he stood under everyone's stares, his voice hoarse. The past 3 years, revenue growth was slow due to market conditions. Get to the point, she cut in coldly. During your 3-year tenure, profits fell 57% and debt doubled. Your explanation? Well, Charles faltered. It was because when I took over, Miller Group went bankrupt long ago. Her tone turned icy. You should focus on your management, not shifting blame. She threw a stack of documents onto the table. This is the company audit report my team completed in 2 weeks. Every issue is clearly documented. If you have no objections, your advisory role will be terminated this week. Charles gritted his teeth. Don't push it. Lena's lips curled. This is my company. Who decides how things are run? You? Or me? You're our new boss? His voice was raspy, as if unable to believe the reality. Rather late to realize that now. She stood and walked to him, her voice like frost. You stole my wedding, ruined my reputation, seized my shares, thought you'd won? But you forgot. The Lena Miller you pushed into the mud knows exactly how to climb back up. And then, push you down. She returned to her seat. Second order of business. Molly Linden, please introduce yourself. Molly felt as if she'd been plunged into ice. She slowly stood, lips pale. I'm Molly Linden, current reception manager. Before she could finish, Lena interrupted. Yesterday you were dismissive with clients. We received 3 complaints. Complete improvements by next week, or you'll be demoted to receptionist. Dead silence fell. Molly, burning with humiliation, could only stammer. Yes. Ms. Miller. Lena turned to the others, her smile still light but sharp as a blade. I don't play games, but I'm excellent at settling accounts. Those who've wronged me will pay in full. The meeting ended. At that moment, everyone knew. Lena Miller was not the same bride who was driven from her wedding 5 years ago. She was their new boss, someone to be revered and feared, their queen. Molly's legs nearly gave way as she left the conference room. She never expected that after 5 years, Lena would return with such a formidable presence. Even more shocking was that she had become her subordinate, the reception manager. From being the CEO's fiancée to her subordinate. My, how the mighty have fallen. The whispers from the logistics department slithered like venomous snakes in her ears. Wonder how long she'll last. Will she be demoted to receptionist by next week? Even the office junior was smirking now. Molly gritted her teeth, forcing a smile. People climb up, water flows down. I, Molly Linden, don't need a man to excel at my job. She said this for others to hear, and for herself too. But nobody believed it. Not even herself. She knew all too well about Lena's capabilities. She'd witnessed them at university. Despite being born with a silver spoon, Lena had executed every business competition, debate, and project planning with absolute precision. That power to control everything, to turn situations to her advantage, Molly had always seen it firsthand. Back then, she hadn't needed to fear it because she stood beside Lena as her best friend. But now, she was beneath her. The next morning at 9. Molly had barely sat down when the stack of documents on her desk made her face pale. A pile of foreign guest reception reports, venue setup proposals, budget review forms, and several urgent French documents marked priority. Attached was a note. Ms. Linden, complete all of the above by end of day. 1 minute late counts as incomplete. Signed with an elegant flourish, Lena Miller. She immediately stormed into the CEO's office. Lena, are you doing this deliberately? I was just demoted from director yesterday. And today you're making me do the work of 3 people? Lena continued reviewing documents without looking up, methodically turning pages. Dissatisfied with your workload? This is workplace harassment. Molly couldn't contain her anger. Just because you're wealthy and powerful now doesn't mean you can humiliate me. Lena finally looked up. Her gaze was cool but piercing as ice. Humiliate you? You think too highly of yourself. Your current position is a mercy I've granted you. You think you're still in an office because of your abilities? No, it's because I'm being kind. Molly's face flushed red, her nails digging into her palms. What do you really want? Lena rose slowly, walked around her desk, advancing step by step. I don't want anything. I just want you to experience what it feels like to be trampled underfoot. Unable to fight back, yet forced to smile. You stole my wedding, stole my man. Conspired with Charles to drive me out of the Miller Group. Now, it's time to pay. Molly clenched her teeth, tears welling in her eyes but refusing to fall. Back then, I just loved him. Love? Lena gave a soft laugh. You destroy your best friend because you love a man? When you stood in front of my dressing mirror wearing my wedding dress, smiling and wishing me happiness, did you feel any shame? The air fell silent for 3 seconds. Molly's gaze grew distant, and she finally lowered her head. I regret it. Lena turned back to her desk without looking at her, her voice as light as the wind. You will regret it. Not just today, but every day. You'll slowly taste the flavor of regret in every task I assign. Every humiliation, every order. You're not my friend, not my rival, you're just a joke. Molly's legs weakened, and she finally fled the office in tears. Lena sat down, took a deep breath. Her eyes returning to their usual cold composure. She knew her revenge was just beginning. That evening, a news alert popped up on Twitter. VONN Holdings CEO Ms. Lena Miller to attend City's Economic Forum this week. Delivering keynote speech, female leadership and the new corporate order. Within hours, the post garnered over 30,000 comments. Lena Miller? The heiress whose wedding was stolen 5 years ago? She's back? Who would have thought the woman driven from her wedding would become such a powerhouse 5 years later? I'm definitely watching the live stream of her speech. This is like a real-life revenge story come true. Charles had been having the same dream lately. In his dream, he sat in the CEO's position, surrounded by admirers, with everything under his control. But in the next moment, Lena would approach in a black dress, lean close to his ear, and whisper, "This position doesn't belong to you." Then he would fall from his high place into endless darkness. Each time he woke up, he was drenched in cold sweat. Reality was even more terrifying than the dream. Lena had returned, bringing with her enough capital and power to swallow Genewell plc. The most frightening thing was her silence. She didn't make a show of it, didn't seek revenge openly, didn't do anything illegal, she simply, quietly, took him down. Like a puppet with cut strings, he was being led by her towards the abyss. Mr. Guthrie, regarding last year's equipment procurement order. The figures don't quite add up. The finance department called, their tone cautious. I'll look into it, he said, frowning deeply. After hanging up, his secretary stood at the door to report. 3 suppliers have canceled their private partnerships with you today. One of them was the contract you personally secured. Also, Ms. Miller has sent notice requesting your presence at an internal accountability meeting tomorrow, which she will personally chair. Charles stood up abruptly. What is she playing at? The secretary hesitated, then said quietly, I heard they're reviewing all major contracts and travel expenses from the past 3 years. The words hit him like a hammer blow. He knew what he had done. Misappropriated funds, kickbacks, fake travel expenses, false contracts. When Lena was ousted overnight, he thought Jeanwell had become his kingdom, and no one would investigate these matters. But he'd forgotten Lena never fought unprepared. At the meeting, mountains of documents, contracts, and invoices were laid before everyone. Charles's fingers turned ice cold, his body rigid. Lena sat at the head of the table, holding the most damning expense report. It showed his personally signed Mexico research project worth £5 million, which had actually been transferred to his private offshore account. "Mr. Guthrie, do you have any reasonable explanation?" Her tone was gentle, yet it made him squirm. "I had company authorization at the time." "But you altered the authorization content," she countered, "and executed it outside the reporting scope. According to law, this constitutes embezzlement." Silence fell as everyone stared in shock. Charles stood up suddenly, face ashen. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would," she smiled calmly. "But I'm not going to call the police right now. I'd prefer you admit your wrongdoing voluntarily. Write an internal confession, take responsibility for this audit, and formally announce your resignation. Then I might not pursue this matter." She paused, adding seemingly generously, "At least not for now." Charles gritted his teeth in hatred, fists clenched, but knew he had no choice. He'd always been clever, surviving in business by reading situations well. If he resisted now, prison awaited him. With trembling hands, he took the paper and pen, writing through clenched teeth. "I, Charles Guthrie, due to management failures leading to major financial discrepancies, accept full responsibility." Each word felt like signing away his life. The news spread quickly. Jeanwell plc's executive CEO Charles Guthrie implicated in financial misconduct. Voluntarily resigns and accepts full responsibility. VONN Holdings restructuring shows remarkable results. New female CEO proves formidable. The woman thrown out of her wedding 5 years ago now makes her ex-fiancé take the fall. The story trended on Twitter for 3 days, with explosive comments. Officially impressed by this power move, so satisfying. Charles Guthrie? Isn't he that cheating man from back then? Lena's writing a corporate fairy tale. Queen takes all, male lead exits stage left. And Lena watched it all quietly. At night, she sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights. Her assistant approached. "Ms. Miller, he's admitted everything. Charles Guthrie will be gone tomorrow." She replied softly, "Good. Arrange a party." The assistant was surprised. To celebrate? She shook her head. To celebrate him finally understanding. In this world, the highest price you pay is for betraying someone you never should have betrayed. When Lena stood at the podium of the city's economic forum, all the spotlights focused on her. In a black sleeveless dress complementing her short hair, she stood under the lights like a sharp blade. She was tonight's headline speaker, and the center of attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I was once the most promising heiress of the Miller Group. And I was also the failure who was humiliated and driven out of her own wedding by her fiancé and best friend. But regrettably, that was merely the prologue of my life." The audience erupted in whispers. People below the stage muttered among themselves. She's actually admitting to what happened back then? This is going to be big news. On stage, Lena remained composed, offering a faint smile. 5 years ago, they worked together to push me out. Today, they work for me. Nothing in this world hurts more than betrayal. But nothing feels better than making them regret it. I never repay kindness with hatred. I simply return what I received. This statement instantly set the Twitter livestream comments ablaze. Absolutely savage. What a boss lady flashback moment. She's a lady when quiet, a warrior when she strikes. This isn't a speech, it's a public trial. Meanwhile, Molly sat in the audience, her face as white as paper. When she saw the screen switch to CCTV footage from 5 years ago at the hotel, she felt as if struck by lightning. The video showed Molly in her bridesmaid dress, secretly trying on the bride's veil in Lena's bridal suite. narcissistically saying to the mirror. Lucky Lena's misfortune, this wedding dress suits me better. Lena didn't look at her, simply stating calmly. Some say I'm too harsh, that I shouldn't bring up the past. But I think what's worse than malice is knowingly trampling on someone's kindness again and again. Molly Linden. For the first time, she called her name in public. You weren't just a supporting character. You were the person I trusted most. You offered me a poisoned chalice while pretending to give me water. Now you say you regret it. But I'm sorry. Her eyes were cold, each word sharp as a knife. You don't deserve forgiveness. Molly finally broke down and stood to leave. But the exits were blocked by media, camera flashes endless. Miss Linden, do you feel any remorse? Did you really say once she's gone, I'll be the lady of the house? Were you involved in the Miller Group's share transfer? The reporter's questions came in waves. Her face no longer showed its usual pride, only devastation. She wanted to scream, to tear everything apart. But Lena just stood on stage, her gaze cold, like a monument. That night, Twitter's top 3 trending topics were all about Lena. Hashtag Lena Miller's speech. Hashtag Molly Linden wedding theft. Hashtag truth about wedding 5 years ago. The media coverage was overwhelming. Social media comments went wild. She's not being dramatic, she's fighting back. This isn't just a comeback story, it's a masterclass in social revenge. Molly will never recover from this, will she? Charles's photos were also dug up, with netizens ranking him first on City S's top scumbag list. That night, Lena completed the first act of her revenge. The next day, her secretary entered the office, speaking softly. Molly Linden has submitted her resignation. Lena nodded. Accept it. I've given her the last shred of dignity. From now on, make sure she never appears before me again. The secretary hesitated, then asked, will you forgive her? She was silent for a moment, then shook her head. I'm not a saint. I hold grudges. She looked at the daylight outside the window, her voice light as clouds. But I won't hate her anymore. Because she's no longer worth my hatred. 3 weeks later. At the most prestigious venue in City S, Royal Bay Crystal Hall. At 9 in the morning, the decoration team was stunned when they arrived. The stage was transformed into a pure white sea of flowers, with a crown-like ceremonial arch in the center. A red carpet stretched from the entrance to the main position. There was no master of ceremonies, no groomsman, and no wedding dress. The main visual backdrop bore only one sentence. This life is mine, I wed no other. Has she gone mad? A solo wedding? Not mad, brilliantly mad. The news shook City S. Everyone thought Lena's revenge play had ended. Yet she personally wrote the finale, naming it, A Grand Wedding. A wedding shouldn't belong only to love. It can belong to dignity and freedom. This statement spread across Twitter overnight, even making the cover of a prominent women's financial magazine. At 6 that evening, guests began to arrive. No one knew how this brideless wedding would unfold. Until that moment. The music began. The hall lights dimmed gradually, leaving a single spotlight on the ceremonial arch. Lena, wearing a bespoke black and gold gown, holding a bouquet of thorned roses, slowly stepped onto the red carpet. Applause erupted at her first step. She wasn't walking towards anyone, she was walking towards herself. There were no groomsmen below the stage. Only all the heavyweight figures from City S's business world. Media cameras lined up, with comments flooding Twitter. This wedding needs no man to steal the show. Lena Miller wasn't just a bride, she was a queen. I'm not marrying anyone, I'm marrying myself. This is ultimate romance. At center stage, she took her position and accepted the microphone. The lights cast her in an ethereal glow, like a deity descended. She spoke slowly. Many years ago, I dreamed of a wedding with love, vows, and white lace. But now I understand that a wedding was never about he does. It's about me. I do. She smiled, looking at the audience. I do promise to love myself, protect myself, and achieve my dreams. In this life, I crown myself and sign my own future. The venue erupted in thunderous applause, with Twitter exploding. She didn't wait for a prince, she became the queen herself. Who says a woman must marry? She's married to glory, sovereignty, and dignity. This is revenge at its finest, not destroying others, but rebuilding oneself. This wedding, from nothing to everything, from silence to thunder. From flames of revenge to light of independence. After the ceremony, media rushed for interviews. Ms. Miller, does this wedding mean you've finally let go? She remained composed. I was never here to let go. I came to reach the top. She smiled sideways, radiating elegance. I'm not here seeking anyone's forgiveness. I'm here to tell everyone, that woman you once mocked? You're not even worthy to look up to her now. This wedding had no love story, yet it was full of victory. No partner, yet it was a coronation of solo dance. Late night. Lena sat alone by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the city lights, raising a toast to herself. Outside, the city's neon lights blazed. But in her reflection, only one word remained: freedom. Deep in winter, darkness enveloped the night. Charles sat at the end of the hospital corridor, his face pale as he rigidly flipped through a termination agreement. Sir, this is the final notice from VONN Holdings. If you don't clear your assets within this week, you'll receive formal legal proceedings. He lit a cigarette, his hands trembling. 3 months ago, he was still the executive CEO of Genewell plc. Now, all he had left was a mortgaged mansion and a mountain of lawsuits. Molly had returned to her hometown after the scandal, disappearing into the crowd. His social media feed remained blank. His phone buzzed with a message. Tomorrow evening, Old Hotel Rooftop, 7 p.m., be there Lena Miller. He froze for a few seconds, then smiled bitterly. The next evening, Charles walked into the rooftop where their wedding had taken place 5 years ago. The familiar red carpet had been replaced with black. Dim lights overhead, white pillars stretching down to the central stage. She was already waiting there. In a black high-neck coat, her long hair loosely tied up. Her features unchanged yet colder than memory. Lena. His voice was hoarse. Did you call me here just to mock me? She replied coldly, mock you? You think too highly of yourself. I called you here to make one thing clear. She stepped closer, her eyes dark. I'm not here to forgive you. I'm not here to pity you. I'm standing here today to tell you that not a single moment of my life was lived for you. She advanced step by step, each word sharp as a blade. I didn't come here to love you. I came here to destroy you. The air grew still like dead water. Charles gritted his teeth. Do you really hate me that much? Hate? She sneered. You're not worth it. You were just a mistake in my life. And I merely used you to forge myself into something sharper. She walked to the window, gazing at the city he had once mocked and betrayed. Do you know what the cruelest revenge is? It's not destroying you, it's making you forever know that you lost to me. And I no longer need you to define who I am. She turned to look at him one last time. Goodbye, Charles Guthrie. My revenge ends here. She turned away, walking firmly out of the wedding hall that had once suffocated her. After tonight, no old feelings, no looking back. As the lift doors slowly closed, she seemed to see that tear-stained bride from 5 years ago, standing on the steps in her torn wedding dress. Now, she wore armor, carried the wind, and smiled down at her past. She was no longer a woman who needed saving. She was flame, she was blade, she was the queen of her own destiny.